Darius Webb was 38 years old when he decided to stage his own death as an anniversary surprise. He was a successful structural engineer who'd spent a decade building his consulting firm while funding every dream his wife Simone ever mentioned. He'd noticed her distance lately, but blamed it on stress from the art gallery he'd bankrolled with $200,000 of his own money. He thought a grand romantic gesture would fix everything. So he orchestrated a hiking accident with his cousin's help, planning to reveal himself alive at a surprise dinner reservation. Instead, from a remote cabin with surveillance equipment pointed at his own home, Darius watched his wife receive news of his death from sheriff's deputies. Her first phone call wasn't to his mother, wasn't to her family, wasn't to 911. It was to a man Darius barely recognized, and when her voice came through the speakers, she was laughing. What Darius discovered in the 48 hours that followed would expose a betrayal far deeper than infidelity, and the decision he made in that cabin would cost her everything she thought she'd already stolen. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. Darius Webb stood in his home office, bathed in the blue glow of his computer screen. The familiar face of his cousin Leon filled the video chat window, his outdoor gear visible in the background of his cabin office. "Run it by me one more time," Leon said, leaning closer to his camera. "I want to make sure we have every detail perfect." Darius smiled, clicking through a meticulously organized spreadsheet on his second monitor. "Tomorrow morning, I leave for the trailhead at 7. You'll report me missing around 2 in the afternoon when I don't make our check-in call. Search and rescue gets mobilized, which is actually just my team," Leon interrupted with a knowing grin. "All certified guides who can keep a secret." "Exactly," Darius nodded, his fingers drumming lightly on his desk. "Meanwhile, I'll be set up in your observation cabin with the surveillance equipment. Perfect view of our house, but completely hidden from the road." The sound of a car door slamming came through his open window. Darius glanced at his watch. 7:45 p.m. Simone was home late again. "You sure about all this tech stuff?" Leon asked. "The cameras and everything?" "Tested it 3 times this week. The window cam is completely invisible, and the audio feed is crystal clear. I want to capture her face when she gets the news." Darius's voice softened. "Then tomorrow night, when she thinks I'm—" He trailed off as footsteps echoed through the house. "When she thinks you're dead, you show up at LeBlanc for your anniversary dinner looking very much alive," Leon finished. "You're either the most romantic guy I know or completely crazy." "Maybe both," Darius chuckled. He heard Simone's heels clicking down the hallway. "She's home. I'll see you tomorrow at the trailhead." "Roger that, cousin. Operation Anniversary Surprise is go." Darius ended the call just as Simone passed his office door. She barely glanced inside, her face illuminated by her phone screen. "Hi," she said flatly, continuing down the hall. "Hey, beautiful," he called after her. "How was the gallery?" "Fine. Busy." Her voice was distant, distracted. "I need a shower." Darius followed her to their bedroom, watching as she dropped her designer handbag on their bed. A new one, he noticed, probably worth thousands. He didn't remember seeing the charge on their shared credit card. "I was thinking about this weekend," he ventured, leaning against the doorframe. "Our anniversary dinner tomorrow night." Simone's shoulders tensed slightly as she pulled clothes from her dresser. "About that. Could we maybe reschedule? The gallery's been crazy, and I have this potential buyer." "The reservation's already set," Darius said carefully, maintaining his calm smile. "LeBlanc at 8. Your favorite restaurant?" She turned, and for a moment, something like irritation flashed across her face before it smoothed into a practiced smile. "Of course. You're right. I'm just tired." As she brushed past him toward the bathroom, Darius caught a whiff of unfamiliar cologne. He watched her place her phone face down on the counter, another new habit he'd noticed lately. The screen lit up with a notification, but he couldn't see the message. Standing alone in their bedroom, he noticed more small details that had been nagging at him. A drawer not quite closed, revealing designer clothes he didn't remember buying. Her laptop closed, but with a new password he didn't know. The slight distance in her eyes when she kissed him goodbye in the mornings. Darius shook his head, pushing away the unsettled feeling in his stomach. He was being paranoid. Simone was just stressed about the gallery, the business he'd helped her build, investing not just money, but years of emotional support. Tomorrow's surprise would remind her of the magic they'd built together. He went to his closet and checked his packed bag one final time. Hiking gear, emergency supplies, the small surveillance kit he'd need at Leon's cabin. Everything was ready. The shower started running, and Darius heard Simone's muffled voice, probably on the phone again. He'd noticed she did that more lately, taking calls in the bathroom or outside on the deck. Gallery business, she always said. Just one more day, he whispered to himself, zipping up his bag. 10 years of marriage deserved a grand gesture, something to show her that his patience and generosity weren't just traits, but active choices, investments in their shared future. The next morning, Darius woke early. Simone was still asleep, her phone clutched in her hand. He kissed her forehead gently, and she stirred, but didn't wake. "I love you," he whispered, meaning it completely. He grabbed his gear and headed out to his truck, the rising sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. As he drove toward the mountains, his heart felt full of anticipation. By this time tomorrow, they'd be laughing about his elaborate scheme over wine and her favorite French cuisine. The gravel crunched under Darius's truck as he pulled up to Leon's observation cabin. Nestled in the dense forest overlooking their neighborhood, the small structure provided a perfect vantage point while remaining completely hidden from the road below. Leon stepped out onto the wooden porch, already dressed in his search and rescue gear. "Right on schedule," Leon said, helping Darius unload the equipment. "How are those nerves holding up?" "Steady as ever," Darius replied, though his heart was beating faster than he'd like to admit. He'd triple-checked every detail, but executing the plan felt different than planning it. Inside the cabin, Darius unpacked his surveillance kit, while Leon cleared space on the large wooden table. The cabin was sparse but comfortable. A few chairs, a small kitchen, and, most importantly, reliable power and internet connection. Perfect for their needs. "Camera feeds are already live," Darius said, opening his laptop. Multiple windows appeared showing different angles of his house, the front door, driveway, and main windows. "I installed these last month during the security system upgrade." Simone never questioned it. Leon whistled low. "You really thought of everything, didn't you?" "Engineer," Darius shrugged. "It's what we do." They spent the next hour setting up additional equipment, backup power supplies, recording devices, and a high-powered directional microphone that could pick up sound through windows from a considerable distance. Darius tested each system methodically, marking off items on his checklist. At 3:55 p.m., Leon checked his watch. "Show time." "You ready?" Darius nodded, settling into a chair facing the monitors. "Make the call." Leon stepped outside with his phone, and Darius heard him reporting the missing hiker situation to local authorities. His cousin was a natural, voice filled with professional concern as he described how Darius had missed their scheduled check-in. By 4:30 p.m., search and rescue teams, mostly Leon's own employees who were in on the plan, had mobilized. They made a show of searching designated areas while carefully avoiding the observation cabin. Darius watched the house cameras intently. Simone's car wasn't in the driveway yet. He checked his phone. No messages from her, which wasn't unusual lately. She often worked late at the gallery, especially on Fridays. At 6:15 p.m., he spotted 2 sheriff's deputies pulling up to his house. His pulse quickened. Simone's silver Mercedes was now parked in the driveway. "Here we go," he whispered, adjusting the audio feed. Through the window camera, he watched the deputies approach his front door. The crisp evening air carried their voices clearly as they rang the doorbell. Simone answered, looking polished in an expensive dress he'd never seen before. "Mrs. Webb?" one deputy asked. "May we come in?" "We need to discuss your husband." Darius leaned forward, eager to capture her reaction. He expected tears, panic, the natural response of a wife learning her husband might be in danger. Instead, he watched something entirely different unfold. Yes, there was initial shock. Her hand flew to her mouth, her eyes widened, but then something shifted. She paced the living room as the deputies explained the situation, her eyes darting repeatedly to her phone. Her expression wasn't devastated, it was calculating, almost analytical. "We'll keep you updated on the search efforts," the deputy was saying. "Is there someone you'd like us to call? Family?" "No," Simone said quickly. "No. I'll handle the notifications myself." But after the deputies left, she didn't call anyone. She didn't cry. She walked through their house with measured steps, touching nothing of his, her face growing more relaxed with each passing minute. She looked unburdened, free. Darius felt something cold settle in his stomach. "This isn't right," he muttered. "What's happening?" Leon asked, returning from his latest search team check-in. "She's not calling anyone. Not my mother. Not her family. She's just—" Darius gestured at the screen where Simone was pouring herself a large glass of wine, her movements almost jubilant. At 8:47 p.m., Simone's phone lit up. She immediately initiated a video call, settling onto their leather couch with her wine. Darius adjusted the audio feed, expecting to finally see her contact his mother or her sister. Instead, a man's face filled her screen, someone vaguely familiar. Darius squinted, trying to place him. Then it hit him. The gallery consultant she'd introduced a few months ago. Trevor? Something. Simone's voice came through the speakers with perfect clarity, and every word shattered Darius's world. "Baby, it actually happened. I can't believe it." She was laughing. Actually laughing. "No, I'm not sad. I'm free. God, I've been waiting for an exit for 3 years." Darius's fingers tightened around his headphones as Simone's laughter echoed through the feed. His chest felt hollow, each breath burning as he watched her face light up at Trevor Nichols on the video call. The gallery consultant she'd introduced at a dinner party 6 months ago, the same man who'd praised Darius's generosity in funding Simone's dreams. "I still can't believe the timing," Simone said, settling onto their living room couch, the one Darius had spent weeks choosing because she loved the color. "I was going to wait a few more months, build up more savings, but this?" She gestured expansively. "This is perfect." Trevor leaned closer to his camera. "Are you sure they'll believe it was an accident?" "Leon's handling the search and rescue. He's Darius's cousin. Completely trustworthy because he has no idea what's really happening." Simone rolled her eyes. "That's Darius for you. His whole family worships him because he's so dependable, so generous. It made him useful, but God, it was exhausting pretending to be impressed by all that stability." Each word hit Darius like physical blows. His hands trembled as he adjusted the recording software, making sure every second was captured. 10 years of marriage collapsed into ash in his mouth as he watched his wife dissect their life together with casual contempt. "What about guilt?" Trevor asked, though his smirk suggested he already knew the answer. 10 years is a long performance. Simone's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Why would I feel guilty? I gave him 10 years of my life. I played the supportive wife, showed up at his boring work events, listened to endless discussions about load-bearing walls and structural integrity." She took a long sip of wine. "I earned every penny I'm going to get from this." "Speaking of pennies," Trevor said, "what's the status on the gallery situation?" Darius leaned forward, his engineer's mind automatically cataloging data points despite the roaring in his ears. "It's bad." Simone waved her hand dismissively. "But I've been moving money around from his accounts to cover the losses. He never checked. Just kept depositing more when I said I needed it for inventory or renovations." She smiled, shark-like. "I've got about 300,000 tucked away. Once everything's settled with his estate, we'll start fresh somewhere else." The clinical part of Darius's brain, the part that assessed structural failures for a living, began calculating. 300,000, plus the gallery losses, plus whatever else he hadn't discovered yet. His hands had stopped shaking, replaced by a strange steadiness he recognized from crisis situations at work. When buildings failed, emotions helped no one. You needed data, analysis, and strategic action. "I'll play the grieving widow for a few weeks," Simone continued, stretching like a satisfied cat. "His mother's got early Alzheimer's, so she'll be easy to manage. A few sad interviews about how devoted he was, how lost I am without him, then a tasteful period of mourning before finding comfort in the arms of an old friend." She winked at Trevor. The call ended shortly after. Leaving Simone alone in their living room, she walked to the mirror in the entryway, the antique one Darius had restored as an anniversary gift 3 years ago. Raising her wine glass to her reflection, she smiled. To freedom. Darius removed his headphones with mechanical precision. He looked at Leon, who had watched silently from across the cabin, his face dark with fury. "I need you to extend the search," Darius said, his voice surprisingly steady. "Tell them the weather's bad. Tell them you found signs I might have tried to shelter somewhere. I need more time." Leon nodded, already reaching for his phone to call the search coordinator. Darius pulled out his own phone, first calling Rochelle Thompson. Their friendship stretched back to elementary school. But more importantly, she was now a forensic accountant who specialized in fraud investigation. "I need your help," he said when she answered. "Everything you've got. Full financial autopsy." His voice cracked slightly. "It's Simone." His next call was to his brother Julian, who answered despite the late hour. "I need a lawyer," Darius said simply. "And a brother. Both sides of you need to hear this." He explained everything, his words precise and controlled, even as his free hand clenched, until the knuckles went white. Julian listened without interruption, the silence on his end growing heavier with each revelation. The next morning, Darius forced himself to watch the feeds as Simone drove to Cornerstone Coffee downtown. Trevor was waiting outside. They embraced openly, his hands sliding down her back as she pressed against him. No pretense, no fear of being seen. Why bother? Dead men tell no tales, and dead men's wives have nothing to hide. The afternoon sun slanted through the cabin windows as Rochelle Thompson set up her laptop on the rough wooden table. Her normally neat appearance showed signs of a sleepless night, hair pulled back messily, yesterday's clothes wrinkled. But her eyes were sharp and focused as she pulled up spreadsheet after spreadsheet. "I've been through 2 years of records," she said, fingers flying across the keyboard. "It's worse than we thought, Darius. Much worse." Darius stood behind her chair, watching numbers scroll past. His engineering mind automatically organized the data. Dates, amounts, patterns. The systematic destruction of his life laid out in clean columns and rows. "Show me everything," he said quietly. Rochelle nodded, pulling up a master spreadsheet. The gallery was never profitable, not even close. But that's not the real problem. Look here. She highlighted a series of transactions. These vendors, they don't exist. The artwork shipments, the renovation materials, the consulting fees, all fake. She created shell companies, complete with forged documentation. The total at the bottom of the screen made Darius's jaw clench. $340,000. She laundered it through multiple accounts, Rochelle continued, opening more documents. Small amounts at first, testing the waters. Then bigger transfers once she realized you weren't monitoring closely. Classic embezzlement pattern. Julian's face appeared on a video call window, his attorney's office visible behind him. The money trail led me to something even more concerning, he said, without preamble. Simone took out a business loan 3 months ago. $150,000, using your engineering firm as collateral. Darius felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. I never signed. She forged your signature, Julian interrupted, holding up scanned documents. The paperwork looks legitimate at first glance. She had access to enough of your documents to make a convincing copy. The money went directly into an escrow account and was used to purchase a condo in Trevor's name. The loan's in default, Rochelle added quietly. First missed payment was last week. The bank will start proceedings soon, which could damage your firm's credit rating and reputation. Darius turned to the surveillance feeds. As if on cue, Simone's car pulled into their driveway. Trevor's sleek Mercedes parked behind it. They entered the house together, Simone using her key casually, like she wasn't letting her lover into her supposedly dead husband's home. Let's start in the living room. Simone's voice came through clearly. Most of this furniture is coming with me. It's all high-end pieces I selected anyway. What about his stuff? Trevor asked, running his hand along Darius's grandfather's antique desk. Sell what we can. Donate the rest. Simone shrugged. God, look at this place. Everything's so practical, so sensible. Just like him. She picked up a framed photo of their wedding day, studying it with detached amusement. He was so boring, so predictable. He actually thought being stable was a personality. Trevor laughed, pulling her close. At least he was useful. Speaking of useful, Julian's voice cut through the feed. I found records of her meeting with divorce attorneys. 3 weeks ago, she consulted with 3 different firms, shopping for whoever would push for the highest settlement. Rochelle switched to another spreadsheet. She's been systematically documenting every contribution she made to your business, every time she attended a client dinner or hosted at your house, building a case for maximum spousal support. Darius watched the screens as Simone and Trevor moved through his house, casually dividing his possessions, erasing his existence piece by piece. His phone buzzed. A text from Leon about the search efforts being scaled back due to weather conditions. On screen, Simone received the same update. Her face lit up as she immediately typed a message to Trevor, even though he stood right beside her. It's really happening. Darius turned to his laptop, creating a new folder labeled Evidence. With mechanical precision, he began downloading surveillance footage, financial records, loan documents, and text messages. Each betrayal cataloged and time-stamped, building an airtight case. I've dated and annotated everything, Rochelle said, sending more files. The fraud is documented and clear. When you're ready to move, we've got her. Sunday morning dawned clear and cold. Darius had barely slept, spending the night organizing evidence and watching Simone celebrate his death with expensive wine and video calls to Trevor. His phone rang just after sunrise. Leon's name flashed on the screen. Good news, his cousin said, voice carefully projecting relief for any potential listeners. Search teams found you about an hour ago. You're injured, but alive, being treated at the remote medical station we set up. A pause. Are you ready for the next phase? The news came Sunday afternoon. Through the cabin's surveillance system, Darius watched 2 deputies return to his house. Simone answered the door in yoga pants and one of his old college sweatshirts, a calculated costume of casual grief. Mrs. Webb, the older deputy said, we have good news. Your husband has been found alive. The flash of dismay across Simone's face was subtle but unmistakable. Her hands tightened on the door frame before she caught herself, rearranging her features into shocked joy. Alive? Oh, thank God! She pressed a hand to her chest, tears appearing on command. Where is he? Is he hurt? I need to see him. The deputies explained about the remote medical station, about minor injuries requiring observation. Simone nodded at all the right moments, asking appropriate questions, voice trembling with perfectly modulated concern. "You've got quite an actress there," Rochelle muttered, watching beside Darius. She'd barely left the cabin since arriving with the financial records, helping document every moment of Simone's performance. As soon as the deputies left, Simone's mask slipped. She paced the living room, checking her phone repeatedly. 3 attempts to call Trevor went straight to voicemail. Finally, she sent a text Darius could read through their shared cloud account. "Call me now. Everything's fucked. He's alive." Monday morning brought Simone to the cabin, which Leon had staged as a makeshift recovery location. Darius lay in bed, playing weak and medicated, as she burst through the door. "Darling!" She rushed to his side, tears flowing freely. Her fingers brushed his face with practiced tenderness. "I was so scared. When they told me you were missing," she choked up right on cue. "I'm sorry," Darius whispered, hating how easily the lie came. "I just wanted some time alone to think. I never meant to fall." "Shh, don't apologize." Simone pressed her lips to his forehead. "You're my hero for surviving. We're going to get through this together. I'll take care of everything." She spent an hour outlining recovery plans, physical therapy, trauma counseling, reduced work hours. Every suggestion positioned her as the devoted caretaker. Every touch and tear designed to reinforce his dependence. The moment her car left the property, Darius checked her messages to Trevor. "He's so pathetic right now," she wrote. "This is almost too easy. He's completely dependent on me. A few more months, and I'll have everything lined up." Trevor replied, "Stick to the plan. Play Florence Nightingale. The more he trusts you, the smoother this goes." Over the next week, Darius returned home to a masterclass in manipulation. Simone transformed their house into a recovery sanctuary. She cooked his favorite meals, scheduled appointments, posted loving updates on social media. Each photo showed her gentle devotion, feeding him soup, helping him walk, reading by his bedside. But in the quiet moments when she thought him sleeping, she methodically went through his office. She photographed documents, tested passwords, made notes about account numbers. Her performance never slipped, but her eyes remained calculating. Behind the scenes, Darius's team worked with matching precision. Julian secured emergency court orders, freezing key accounts, citing evidence of fraud. Rochelle traced every dollar Simone had stolen, building an airtight paper trail. Leon maintained the recovery location story with local authorities, establishing alibis for Darius's surveillance period. Darius himself began the careful work of financial disentanglement. He moved legitimate assets through channels Rochelle had verified secure. He documented every time Simone attempted accessing restricted accounts. He fed her carefully crafted misinformation about an upcoming contract, a major infrastructure project worth millions. He reached out to colleagues and clients, sharing carefully edited versions of his accident. Each conversation reinforced his professional reputation while establishing witnesses to Simone's current supportive behavior. The contrast with her true actions would be devastating later. Friday evening found him pretending to doze on the couch, while Simone paced the back patio, finally reaching Trevor. "He mentioned a huge contract coming through," she said in a low voice. "Some massive infrastructure project. We need to time this perfectly." "The divorce, you mean?" Trevor asked. "Obviously. Once the contract's signed, but before the money hits the accounts, that's when I file." She laughed softly. "All this playing nurse was worth it. He actually thinks I've fallen in love with him all over again." Saturday morning brought weak sunlight and a chill that seemed to seep through Darius's jacket as he approached his mother's modest ranch house. He'd been putting off this visit, knowing his injuries would worry her. But after overhearing some of Simone's phone conversations, He needed to understand what she'd been telling his mother. Diane Webb opened the door before he could knock, her silver hair neatly combed, but her eyes holding that slight cloudiness he'd learned to recognize as a confused day. "Darius?" She blinked rapidly. "I wasn't expecting— Are you all right? Your wife said you weren't supposed to drive yet." "I'm okay, Mom. Leon dropped me off." He followed her inside, noting how she wrung her hands, a nervous habit she'd developed since the Alzheimer's diagnosis. The house was exactly as it had always been. Family photos on every surface, the old piano he'd learned on, worn but clean furniture. But something felt off. His mother's movements were jerky, anxious. "Should you be here?" Diane asked, settling into her favorite armchair. "Simone said you're not supposed to leave the house without her. She's worried about your controlling behaviors getting worse after the accident." Darius felt like he'd been punched. "My what?" "The way you check her phone and won't let her see her friends." Diane's voice wavered. "She was crying, Darius. She said you've changed, become so possessive." "That's not how I raised you." He sat heavily on the couch, mind racing. "Mom, when did Simone tell you these things? Last week?" "No." "Maybe last month?" Frustration crossed her face. "It's hard to remember exactly, but she visits often, tells me how worried she is about you, about the money you're hiding, and how you won't let her work." "Mom." Darius pulled out his phone, opening the gallery app. "I need to show you something. Is this a clear day for you? Can you focus with me for a few minutes?" Diane straightened, some of the confusion leaving her eyes. "Yes, I think so. I took my medication this morning. I remember that clearly." He showed her bank statements, text messages, photos of Simone with Trevor. Carefully, gently, he explained what had really been happening. His mother's face crumpled as understanding dawned. "She used me," Diane whispered. "She knew I might not remember things right, and she—" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "How dare she? How dare she make me doubt my own son?" Darius activated his phone's recording app, asking her permission. "Mom, can you tell me what Simone has been saying to you? Everything you remember?" For the next hour, Diane detailed visits where Simone had planted false memories, twisted reality, used his mother's condition to build a narrative of abuse. By the end, Diane was shaking with anger. "I want her out of your life," she declared, having one of her clearest moments in weeks. "She's poison, Darius. Pure poison." That afternoon, back at his temporary office in Leon's cabin, Darius began discovering the full scope of Simone's campaign. His email held dozens of messages from concerned friends and colleagues, all referencing things Simone had told them. According to her, he was possessive, financially abusive, prone to angry outbursts. She'd told his cousin Sarah that he'd thrown a laptop during an argument, told his old college roommate that she wasn't allowed to have male friends, told his business partner that she feared for her safety but didn't want to involve police. Methodically, Darius began reaching out to each person, not to defend himself, not yet. Instead, he asked careful questions about what exactly Simone had said, when she'd said it, who else was present. He recorded every conversation, building a detailed record of her defamation campaign. "Look at the pattern," Julian said during their evening video call. "She's creating sympathetic witnesses for when she files for divorce. The timing is deliberate." "I want to expose her now," Darius growled. "Especially after what she did to Mom." "Patience," Julian counseled. "Let her build the lies bigger. The higher she stacks them, the harder they'll fall. Trust me, when we're done, no one will ever believe a word she says again." Wednesday evening arrived with a sense of inevitability. Darius sat at their kitchen table, watching Simone arrange papers with practiced solemnity. "I think we need some time apart," she said softly, eyes downcast in perfect imitation of reluctant sadness. "After your accident, I've been doing a lot of thinking. About us, About our future. She slid the separation agreement across the table. Darius scanned the terms without reaction. She would get the house, half his business, substantial monthly support payments. Everything she'd been positioning herself for over years of calculated deception. Darius sat at the kitchen table, the separation papers spread before him like a blueprint for demolition. The overhead light cast harsh shadows across the documents detailing how thoroughly Simone planned to dismantle his life. She stood nearby, arms crossed, wearing an expression of practiced concern that he now recognized as completely artificial. "I know this is hard," Simone said softly, "but it's what's best for both of us. After your accident, I realized life is too short to keep pretending." Darius's fingers traced the edge of a page outlining her demand for the house. Pretending that this marriage is what either of us really wants anymore. She sank into the chair across from him, the movement graceful and calculated. "I've put my dreams on hold for your career for so long. The gallery was my first real chance to build something for myself, and even that became about supporting your image as the successful husband." He noted how she'd positioned herself, shoulders slightly hunched, hands clasped as if in supplication. Every gesture designed to reinforce her narrative of sacrifice. "These financial terms," he said quietly, indicating the extensive list of demands, "they're only fair." Her voice took on an edge of righteousness. "I've invested 10 years of emotional labor into this marriage, into being the perfect wife for your business events, into maintaining our social connections. That has value, Darius." He let his hands shake slightly as he gathered the papers. I need time to think about this." "Of course," she said, triumph flickering behind her sympathetic smile. "Take all the time you need. I know it's a lot to process." Over the next week, Darius executed a careful performance of his own. He called in sick to work, letting his voice crack on the phone with his assistant. He stopped shaving, left dishes in the sink, wore the same clothes multiple days in a row. When Simone was home, he sat in dimmed rooms, staring at nothing. She documented everything, taking photos when she thought he wasn't looking. Evidence of his unstable state for her lawyer, no doubt. Every night, she made phone calls from her car, updating Trevor on his deterioration. "He's completely falling apart," she reported gleefully on Tuesday evening. "He'll sign anything at this point. I've had my lawyer add clauses about partial ownership of the engineering firm. He won't even read the fine print in this state." The official divorce filing arrived with additional demands: executive decision-making power in his business, access to future contracts, increased monthly support. Simone presented each new requirement with gentle insistence, as if she were doing him a favor by taking these burdens off his hands. When Julian, acting as his attorney, suggested mediation at a neutral law office to discuss the terms reasonably, Simone jumped at the opportunity. She immediately insisted Trevor attend as her emotional support person, certain of her position of power. "Of course your friend can attend," Julian agreed smoothly during the scheduling call. "We want everyone to feel comfortable and supported during this process." Behind the scenes, Darius coordinated the final pieces of his response. The 2 detectives he'd been working with confirmed the fraud charges were ready. Rochelle completed her forensic analysis of every transaction, every forged document, every penny stolen. Julian organized affidavits from witnesses and documentation of Simone's systematic lies. The night before mediation, Darius drove to his Aunt Patricia's house, where his mother was staying temporarily. He found Diane having one of her clear evenings, sitting in the garden with her sister. "Are you ready?" she asked, patting his hand. "To finally be free of her?" "More than ready," he assured her. "Aunt Patricia will stay with you tomorrow while everything happens." "I don't want you to worry." "I'm not worried anymore," Diane said firmly. "Not now that I understand what she really is." Thursday morning arrived clear and cold. Darius dressed with precision. His best charcoal suit, crisp white shirt, polished shoes. everything arranged to project stability and control. In the bathroom, he looked at his reflection for a long moment before removing his wedding ring for the last time. The pale band of skin where it had rested would fade, like all marks of Simone's presence in his life. He placed the ring deliberately on the counter, a small golden circle that had once represented endless love and commitment. Now, it was just metal, as hollow as the vows she'd spoken. Without looking back, he walked out of the bathroom, ready to face the day that would change everything. The glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor gleamed in the morning sunlight. Darius sat beside Julian, watching the downtown traffic flow far below while they waited. Rochelle had positioned her laptop and projector with characteristic precision. The two detectives, Burke and Martinez, maintained casual poses near the door, badges concealed but accessible. At exactly 10 a.m., the elevator chimed. Simone strode in wearing an expensive cream suit, Trevor close behind in designer business casual. Her confident smile faltered slightly at the unexpected crowd. "What's all this?" she asked, voice sharp beneath forced lightness. "I thought this was a simple mediation." "It is," Julian replied smoothly. "Please, have a seat. The stenographer needs to record everything accurately." Simone's eyes darted between faces as she sank into a chair. Trevor remained standing until Detective Martinez subtly shifted, blocking the door more definitively. He sat. "Before we discuss settlement terms," Darius said quietly, "I'd like to review our financial history." He nodded to Rochelle, who dimmed the lights and activated the projector. The first slide appeared, a meticulous timeline of transactions, each fraudulent transfer highlighted in red. Dates, amounts, account numbers, all documented with brutal clarity. Simone's face drained of color as she recognized her own paper trail. "Over the past 2 years," Rochelle explained professionally, "approximately $340,000 was systematically embezzled through a network of false vendors created to appear legitimate gallery expenses." Trevor's chair scraped back. Detective Burke stepped forward, badge now visible. "Please remain seated, sir." Darius pressed a button on the conference phone. Simone's voice filled the room. "Baby, it actually happened. I can't believe it. No, I'm not sad. I'm free." Her recorded laughter echoed off glass walls. More recordings followed. Years of calls and texts documenting contempt, calculation, planned theft. Simone's fingers gripped the table edge as her own words condemned her. "The gallery financing becomes particularly interesting," Julian continued, spreading documents across the table. "This business loan for $150,000 secured against my brother's engineering firm? The signature is quite good, but definitively forged according to 3 separate handwriting experts." "You don't understand," Simone interrupted, voice trembling. "He was controlling, emotionally abusive. I was trapped." "Interesting perspective," Darius said softly. He pressed another button. Video played. Simone laughing with Trevor in their secret condo, mocking Darius's generosity, planning how to extract maximum money in divorce. "You seemed quite free to come and go, spend my money, pursue your affair." The projector displayed more documents, bank statements showing systematic theft, forged checks, falsified gallery records, each crime methodically categorized and dated. "Wire fraud," Julian enumerated calmly, "identity theft, embezzlement, multiple counts of each, federal charges carrying mandatory minimum sentences." Trevor's lawyer-trained mind was visibly calculating odds. His eyes darted between the evidence, the detectives, and the door. "This is ridiculous," Simone snapped, but her voice cracked. "I made mistakes, but you can't prove." "We have everything," Darius cut in, "including what you told my mother." His calm finally cracked slightly. "You used her illness to plant false memories, made her doubt her own son while her mind was failing." The projector showed messages to family and friends. Simone's careful campaign of lies contrasted against documented reality. Her claims of abuse versus security footage of her coming and going freely, spending lavishly, meeting Trevor openly. Defamation, Julian added. Not criminal, but grounds for substantial civil damages. Detective Martinez stepped forward, handcuffs glinting. Simone Webb, Trevor Nichols, you're under arrest for criminal fraud and conspiracy. This is insane, Simone shrieked, jerking away. I have lawyers. This was all just mistakes, misunderstandings. Trevor remained silent as he was cuffed, already strategizing his plea deal. Simone continued screaming about rights and explanations as they were led out. Her designer heels clicked rhythmically against marble floors, the sound fading into elevator silence. Darius sat motionless, hands flat on the cool table. 10 years of marriage, 3 years of betrayal, 2 months of investigation, all concluded in less than 30 minutes. He felt nothing but bone-deep exhaustion and relief. That evening, he stood in his home office watching the arrest coverage on multiple news sites. Prominent gallery owner arrested in major fraud scheme scrolled across screens. His phone buzzed constantly with messages of support and shock, but he left them unanswered. Instead, he began systematically removing Simone's presence from the house. Her clothes went into donation boxes, her art books into storage, her photographs into a folder marked evidence, each item categorized and documented before being cleared away. Like debris after a controlled demolition, 3 weeks crawled by like molasses. Darius sat in the stark county jail visitation room, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The metal chair felt cold and unyielding beneath him. Through the reinforced glass partition, he watched the door on the other side open. Simone shuffled in, escorted by a female corrections officer. The orange jumpsuit hung loose on her frame. She'd lost weight. Without her usual perfect makeup and styled hair, she looked smaller somehow, vulnerable. Her eyes darted around before settling on his face with desperate intensity. The officer secured her to the chair and stepped back, maintaining a watchful position by the door. Simone reached for the phone receiver with trembling hands. Darius lifted his own receiver, face neutral. "Thank you for coming," she said, voice hoarse. "I wasn't sure you would." Darius remained silent, waiting. Let her fill the space. "I've had time to think," she continued, attempting a weak smile. "About everything. About us. Do you remember our first apartment? How we'd eat takeout on the floor because we couldn't afford furniture?" When he didn't respond, she pressed on. "We were happy then, weren't we? Before everything got so complicated. Before I made such terrible mistakes." Her eyes welled with tears. They looked genuine, but then they always had. "Trevor took a deal," she said, voice bitter. 4 years reduced to 2. He told them everything, claimed I masterminded it all. But you know me, Darius. You know I'm not some criminal mastermind. I just lost my way. She leaned forward, pressing her palm against the glass. "I'll make it right. I'll sign whatever you want. Full repayment, no claims on anything. I'll disappear completely after. Just please, please don't let them send me away for 6 years. My lawyer says with your support, we could get probation instead." Her voice cracked. "We loved each other once. That had to mean something." Darius studied her face, the face he'd woken up to for 10 years, thinking he knew every expression. Now he wondered if he'd ever known her at all. "Are you finished?" he asked quietly. She nodded, hope flickering in her eyes. "You're right about one thing," he said. "We did love each other. Or rather, I loved who I thought you were, and you loved what I could provide. Neither of those people exist anymore." The hope in her eyes died. "You taught me something valuable," he continued, voice steady. "Some people mistake kindness for weakness, patience for passivity, support for submission. You'll have plenty of time to contemplate that mistake." "Darius, please," she whispered. "I'll do anything." "That's the problem," he replied. "You already did everything. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation. The woman who planned my death celebration while I was supposedly lost in the mountains? That's who you really are. The person who used my mother's illness to plant false memories? That's your true character." Tears streaked down her face. "I was unhappy. I felt trapped. You have to understand." "I understand completely," he cut in. "You had choices. You could have asked for divorce, could have left honestly. Instead, you chose systematic fraud, chose to steal not just money, but years of my life, chose to damage my reputation, my business, my family relationships." His voice remained calm, but each word landed like a hammer strike. "Those weren't mistakes. They were calculated decisions, documented in your own words and actions. The woman I thought I married never existed. She was a performance, remember? Your words." Simone's face contorted. She slammed her palm against the glass. "You've ruined my life, everything I worked for." "No," he interrupted. "You documented it all yourself. I just presented the evidence." He stood, receiver still in hand. "This is our last conversation. I've instructed the facility to refuse any future visitation requests. Goodbye, Simone." She started screaming, yanking at her restraints as the officer moved forward. Darius replaced the receiver with deliberate care and turned away, her muffled shrieks following him out. The autumn sun felt warm on his face as he walked to his car. The drive home took him past familiar landmarks that held different meanings now. The gallery, shuttered. Their favorite restaurant, avoided. The park, where he proposed, tainted. But as he turned onto the tree-lined street leading to his mother's place, the knot in his chest loosened slightly. Diane Webb was waiting on the porch of her small house, overnight bag packed. She'd had good days and bad days lately, but her smile of recognition was clear as sunlight when she saw him. "Ready for dinner?" he asked, helping her with her bag. "You're making that pasta thing?" she asked hopefully. "With the garlic bread you like," he confirmed. Her face brightened. "You're such a good boy, Darius. Always taking care of everyone." He helped her into the car, thinking how that trait had once been weaponized against him. But caring for his mother, that was strength, not weakness. That was love with clear eyes, not blind trust. They drove home together, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of possibility. 18 months later, Darius stood in his sun-drenched kitchen, watching steam rise from the coffee maker. The modern house felt peaceful on this Saturday morning, all clean lines and open spaces, so different from the cluttered decoration of his old life. From the family room, his mother's laughter rang out. "Oh, look at this cat video," Diane called. "The little one keeps falling off the counter." Darius smiled, pouring 2 cups of coffee. His Aunt Sarah had shown Diane how to use a tablet last month, and now she spent happy hours scrolling through animal videos and family photos. The home care assistant, Maria, sat nearby, joining in Diane's delight while keeping a watchful eye. He carried the coffee to where his mother sat. The house had been designed with her in mind. Wider doorways, gentle transitions between spaces, clear sight lines that helped on her confused days. But today was a good day, her eyes bright with awareness. "Coffee, Mom?" he offered. "Thank you, sweetheart." She patted his hand. "Maria, look how handsome my son is in that new suit. The blue one from yesterday's meeting." "The Anderson contract signing," Darius confirmed. The engineering firm had not just survived Simone's attempted sabotage, it had thrived. Colleagues and clients rallied around him during the crisis, impressed by his steady leadership. The sympathy contracts that followed proved his team's excellence, leading to larger projects. His phone buzzed, a text from Keisha. "Looking forward to dinner tonight. Need me to pick up anything?" He smiled, typing back. "Just yourself." 6 months of dating, taking things carefully. She knew everything about Simone, understood his caution about new relationships. As a civil rights attorney, she appreciated the value of patience and clear boundaries. "Is that Keisha?" Diane asked hopefully. She had taken to Keisha immediately, delighting in her warm laugh and sharp mind. "She's coming for dinner," Darius confirmed. "Good. She's good for you." "Not like—" Diane frowned, a shadow crossing her face. "It's okay, Mom," Darius said gently. "That's all in the past." He checked his email, finding the weekly update from his foundation. What started as a personal mission had grown into a proper nonprofit, helping fraud victims navigate financial recovery. They'd assisted 38 families so far this year, providing legal guidance and emotional support. Walking to his home office, Darius noticed an email from Julian marked FYI. His brother had forwarded a news alert. Trevor Nichols, released after 18 months, had left the state. The art world had blacklisted him completely. As for Simone, she was serving year 2 of her 4-year sentence. Her family had cut contact, embarrassed by the scandal. Her carefully crafted reputation lay in ruins. A separate email from his attorney caught his attention. Letter received from Simone Webb. Inmate, Chavruish 247391. Forwarding unopened, per your instructions. Darius picked up the envelope from his printer tray. Her handwriting was familiar. How many love notes had she written in that precise script, each word calculated for effect? He held it for a moment, feeling nothing but distant pity. The shredder hummed efficiently, reducing her words to confetti. Some people didn't deserve closure. Some stories were better left unfinished. Turning to his drafting table, he reviewed plans for the Foundation's community center. The design incorporated elements of strength and transparency, lots of natural light, open spaces for group support meetings, private consultation rooms with calming views of planned gardens. His phone chimed again. Photos from last night's Foundation event. Victims turned survivors sharing their stories, supporting newcomers still reeling from betrayal. He'd spoken briefly, explaining how his experience taught him that recovery wasn't just about money. It was about rebuilding trust in yourself. Maria appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Webb, your mother's ready for her afternoon walk if you'd like to join." Outside, spring flowers bloomed along the carefully planned paths. Diane pointed out birds, naming them confidently. Her long-term memory remained strong even as recent events sometimes slipped away. They completed their usual circuit, just as Keisha's car pulled into the driveway. "Perfect timing," she said, emerging with a bottle of wine. Her smile held warmth without pressure, understanding without pity. Diane brightened. "Keisha, did Darius show you his plans for the new building? He's so clever with his designs." "Not yet," Keisha replied, linking arms with Diane. "Why don't you tell me all about it over dinner?" They moved inside together, Diane chattering happily about her son's accomplishments, while Keisha listened with genuine interest. Sunlight streamed through the wall of windows Darius had specifically designed, casting long, warm rectangles across the hardwood floors. Standing in his kitchen, preparing dinner with practiced ease, Darius realized something profound. He was no longer the man who had watched his world implode 18 months ago. That experience had shaped him, but didn't define him. He was defined by what he built after. This home, this foundation, this carefully reconstructed life based on truth and clear vision. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.